Hey, everybody, welcome back to Turn Bark Time. I'm the Turn,
I'm the Bark.
and we're going to be here a long time. How are you doing, sir? School is winding down. Talk to me, Bark. Tell me how we're doing.
School done wind down. Been winded down. We got done yesterday.
Hot diggity dog.
Um, so all right, long we are free to the summer. Unless you got summer school next week. So I
There.
won't be there.
You won't be there
No.
next week. I love it. Oh man, but yeah, we had our field day today. So we had as if you are a former student of ours at the Quincy School District, you'll know that the junior high, now middle school, we used to do Fun in the Sun, which was where we took the whole school to the pool. Well, we couldn't do that this year because one, the pool is just not up and operating just yet. They're working on it, getting open, getting people lifeguard trained and everything like that. And so we are just had a field day, and it was really fun, but I'm really tired. Planned a lot of it, got it all going, had a great time. Kids had a great time. It was awesome. So tomorrow's the last day of school. We promoted those 8th graders tonight. Congratulations again, 8th graders. If you're watching, listening, we love you, and good luck next year and for the remaining 4 years. Work your hard. And as I signed multiple yearbooks, I said, good luck and do great things.
Are you gonna make some snow cones tomorrow?
No, thank the Lord God. I'm nixed in the snow cone tradition. I hate that thing.
It's because I left.
Yeah, and we missed a ton of awards and everything like that. We missed some great talent show days too because people. So no, we are not. We are doing a half day schedule tomorrow. Obviously, since it's a half day, we are going 1st through 5th. Then 6th and 7th will be an assembly, followed by lunch, and then we will be free. So,
man,
I know
things change over time. It's just hard to let go of the changes. Sometimes.
I mean, we can get it going again. It's just a matter of I don't know where we would do it or why we would do it. I guess you know how like we used to run our show, like it was like the gym was right there. You'd walk straight out, which we could do. But I don't have that fantastic department head that led me through all those snow cone making years.
You're the leader now, son.
I know you passed it on to me a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago, at least, and it hasn't been. It's been 1 year, so or 2 years. But anyway, all right.
It's been a long 2 years.
We've been nostalgic enough. Anyway, this is season 3. It is episode Barker.
17.
152, not 152, but add those 10 plus 5 plus 2. It's 17.
17.
But really cool thing. June 12th actually obviously just passed. It is June 16th, so it was 4 days ago. But I was kind of perusing my Instagram, just kind of doing a scroll through, and I saw this really cool thing that they turned it into a movie, but I thought it was a really cool kind of way to sum up the school year, because this will be our last episode for season 3. Again, thank you for all the people who are dedicated watchers. But we are going to talk about today, on June 12th, 1967, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous verdict in the case that became known as Loving versus Virginia. And it was delivered in favor of Loving for the United States. So June 12th is known as Loving Day. Barker, what's Loving Day?
Doesn't Virginia also have the slogan "Where Lovers Go," or like Virginia for Lovers or something like that?
Yes.
Which is ironic in this story.
That was it the slogan before?
Is it because of this that slogan exists?
You never know. But live research will be conducted at this moment. But go ahead, Barker. Continue on.
All right. So as you know, Loving v. Virginia would tell you that this is a Supreme Court or a court case, and it's a Supreme Court case because we don't trifle with the little ones. I've got jury duty coming up in about a month.
Hey,
So does
are
my mom during the same time. Isn't that cute? Um,
you going to be on the jury with your mom? Because that could
I'm
be
in group 1, she's in group 19, so I think the chances are pretty slim.
God.
But anyway, I thought it was pretty. My mom's like, I have jury duty. Rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, me too, mom. But I'm in group 1, so there's a chance that, Mr. Barker is going to go to court.
You don't have school.
Whether they keep me or not, it's another one. Anyway, so kind of talking about it's Loving versus Virginia. So Loving is the last name of the to be defendants. Yeah,
Isn't it the plaintiffs? I believe
plaintiffs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went to the same law school as Judge Judy and Judge Mathis. No shots fired to them. They're wonderful people. Anyway, Mildred Loving and her husband Richard Loving were arrested in 1958 in July 11th, the same day that I start jury duty, just a long time before it. They were arrested in the state of Virginia for breaking the law. And the law that they broke was the fact that they were in, and I think just a disclaimer, we're going to use, as talking about historical events, we'll use some of the terms that were germane at the time that may not be germane anymore, which hopefully doesn't anger the YouTube too much. Nothing too bad, but it's just things words we don't necessarily use anymore. But Richard Loving was a white or Caucasian male, and his wife Mildred was part Cherokee, part Portuguese, and part black. Which the part that mattered in the state of Virginia was that he was white and she was not. They didn't really care what the breakdown was. It was just the fact that it was against the law. There was a law passed in 1924.
Yep, 24.
Racial Integrity Act.
Yep.
Which I'm going to try and pronounce this, is an example of a miscegenation law.
I call it miscegenation. That's what I said too.
Yeah. Which essentially they started back in as soon as slavery was ended, states started making laws to essentially say that there should not be a mixing of people who are white and people who weren't. And I mean, this gets into a much bigger kind of census, how do we categorize people in America? And it started with, it literally was are you black, are you white or not white? Yep. And then the other racial categories have come, which is why certain ethnicities say Arab Americans don't get their own category, and in a way kind of fly under the radar. So nobody's we don't get targeted because we don't get called out as our own group.
Right.
And so they were arrested. The sheriff, I watched an HBO documentary about this, the Loving story on HBO. And they were saying that the sheriff in town was kind of did things his own way.
Okay.
So maybe it was not the most
by the book,
noble of law officers.
Right.
And when they arrested the couple.
Can I rewind really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just going to lay the base work for everybody so they don't know. So basically, these two met. So Richard Loving and Mildred Loving met in high school and fell in love. When Mildred became pregnant in June of 1958, they go to Washington, D.C., where it is legal for them to marry. Again, if you don't know the context of it, Washington, D.C. is a 4 mile by 4 miles, or a mile by mile square cut out of both Virginia and Maryland. And so, am I right on that? It's 4 square miles. I think that sounds right. It's either that or it's a 4 by 4 it's a 4 by 4 and it's 16 square miles. It's one of those two. I think it's that. I think it's 16 square miles. I'm gonna go with that.
It was a square, and then they gave some of it back.
Right. So basically, to travel from Virginia to Washington, D.C. it's a day's drive at most. But basically they'd gone there to evade the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. And they got married, like I said, in June of 1958. The raid that Barker is talking about on their house is July 11th, 1958. And then Barker, one of the things I found interesting, I don't know if the HBO thing, what were they trying to catch them doing?
Interracial relations, or having intercourse with somebody like between a white person and a non-white person was still illegal in Virginia. So in the documentary they talked about they said the sheriff was hoping to they didn't they broke down the front door, they raided the house. It wasn't like a polite like knock on the door. It was like 4 a.m. and like they kicked in the front door and came in and found them in bed, hoping to find evidence of them committing a crime, which would be having marital relations, which is not a crime.
Yeah. Well, and then what's crazy about it is, so Mildred points to the wall where their marriage certificate is hung up, right? And basically the sheriff's department says that's not valid in the state of Virginia. You are breaking the law. And because there was a statute in that law that said you cannot go to another state to marry somebody and then come back to Virginia and be a wedded couple.
Yeah, they said they would not recognize a marriage license from outside the state of Virginia, which is I think is kind of an important thing.
Now, hold on. So doesn't this is where I was getting interesting, because they file under the 14th Amendment, which is equal protection under the law, which we'll get to that in a minute. But doesn't that violate Article 1 of the Constitution? No. Sorry. Yeah, Article 1. We have to recognize other states' laws, or am I thinking of an amendment? Where it's like, if I have a driver's license, like I can drive at 16, I could drive a car in New York with a Washington driver's license, even if New York doesn't allow people to get a driver's license until 18. So wouldn't that be a violation though? Because I don't know. Anyway.
I'm not sure. And at the time though, you probably wouldn't have a lot of people it's kind of like the like Korematsu versus the United States during World War II, where like technically it was illegal. Like his argumentation in his appeal was correct.
Yeah.
But the country didn't care. You know what I mean? Like I guess the common belief didn't agree with them.
Yeah.
I think you're right, but a large number of states had laws like that. Like, and so I guess that's probably part of it. And you're still, it's kind of the failure of like Reconstruction, right? It's one of those things that like, oh, we said we are going to make them equal, but you get a few years through Reconstruction and it really doesn't do what it's supposed to, and things kind of slam back the way they used to be. And then they start adding more of the Jim Crow laws to keep things segregated and keep things separated. Because like it was interesting, they said that the county that they lived in was segregated, but the Central Point, the town that they lived in and they went to high school in, was very much integrated, despite there being state law that said that segregation was legal.
Yeah, and by the way, it
doesn't sound like it was very big.
Yeah, I was way wrong. It was it was not an amendment. It was not Article 1. It's Article 4. Wow, huge brain fart. Which is the full faith and credit clause, which is where you have to recognize other states' laws. So that's where I would say, like, you would have to recognize, like, if I went and got married in another state, I would still be legally married in Washington State. So, but anyway,
I think they get kicked out of town, right? They get kicked out of the county.
They basically they go to court where they both plead guilty, right? They're married. They're not going to deny that they're married, anything like that. They love each other. And so what happens is they can do a 1-year prison sentence, or they can be banished, basically is the term I heard, or I like to use. They can be banished from Virginia for 25 years. They take the latter, obviously, because you really don't want to go to prison. They move to Washington, D.C. Problem is, Washington, D.C. is very expensive. You look like you have a thought. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think. It's what's the name of that sentence? It's
excommunication.
No. There's a term for that. It's not.
Okay, hold on. I'll get it right here.
Suspended. No. Because it's important. It's important. The fact that it was. Oh shoot!
I got it right here. I'll get you. Give me 2 seconds, and you'll probably get it.
It's vital to the adjudication of the.
Okay, sorry. It is. Appeal. Yep. It is a. They did not call it. They call it a.
Is it
They call it
suspended?
suspended on the condition. The sentence would be suspended on the condition the couple leave Virginia and not return together for 25 years.
Right. So they were allowed. They could come back to visit relatives in Virginia separately.
Yeah, they couldn't
They-
come together.
But essentially, that they didn't follow that.
Yeah.
But they would come back, and one of her, I think it was her brother, ran a boarding house, and like they would do things where like they would show up at different times of day, or like they would stop outside of town and then like come in from two different directions, kind of things. So like they were cognizant of it. So I'm trying to think, the initial arrest is in 58. They don't start. So in the state of Virginia, you have, I want to say it was 60 days or something like that, or 6 months. And then you like for your appeal to be valid
Mm-hmm.
of a conviction. And so like they waited like years.
Yeah.
Because essentially she was unhappy. DC wasn't working out. They're from Virginia. They wanted to be in Virginia. It's where their family was. One of the kids, I think, gets hit by a car, like in the street.
Yeah.
Like not bad, but like enough to where she's like, this is not where I want to live. Because they were from like a rural part of Virginia, and
Yeah.
DC is very much not rural.
No.
Even in the 60s. And so they write a letter to Robert Kennedy.
Who is?
He was the.
Come on, Parker Law.
I know it's the one. It's Attorney General.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And anyway, Robert Kennedy says, because the Civil Rights Act was coming through, I think. And yeah, it's about the right time period. Yes. And he was like, that's not going to help you. You need to write to the ACLU.
Mm.
And so he gets them hooked up with the ACLU, and the ACLU is like, hey, I think there's merit to your case. Now, the question is, how do we get it into the Court of Appeals, because it's past the window?
Yep.
And through like the person who gets the case is a guy who's like only a couple of years, he's less than 2 years out of law school.
Mm-hmm.
And so like a lot of like, as soon as it starts going like big time to like the Supreme Court, like he can't even be the person who officially like is presenting in the Supreme Court, because he hasn't been a lawyer long enough.
Right.
But what they find is that with a suspended sentence, you can still appeal because the sentence is like, it's hanging there.
Yeah.
Kind of a deal. And so that's what allows them to bring it back into the legal system to challenge and say, hey, just because we're a mixed race, like it violates the Equal Protection Clause and the due process clause of the 14th Amendment. And I think the argumentation that people used in this case and in another case was that essentially, no, it's fair because it punishes the white person and the black person the same.
Correct. And that was in the case of Alabama versus Pace, which was an 1883 case around the same thing. But what's here, sorry, I'm gonna jump backward just a smidge. So basically, when they're waiting for a response to their motion, they bring a class action lawsuit in the District Court of the Eastern District of Virginia, and it makes that county judge write his name's Leon M. I'm gonna say Bazile, and he issues a ruling on the motion. But what he does is he quotes a guy, and this is scary, similar. He wrote a guy who wrote in the 18th century interpretation of race. So he denied the motion based on this quote, and I quote, "Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. But for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriages. The fact that he separated the races shows he did not intend the races to mix." Okay, first off, this is a violation of religion.
Establishment clause.
This is some horse poop. But anyway, this gets handed down, which then allows them to continue the appeal process. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so then it becomes the argument becomes like, just because of people's I guess, race, right? Does it deprive them? It comes down to, is the right to marry like a right that can be taken away because of the race? And the decision obviously is 9-0 in favor of Mr. and Mrs. Loving, that no, your race shouldn't, the fact that you're of two different races should not take away your ability like to get married. And it laid the foundation or set the precedent that when same-sex couples came to the Supreme Court in 2015 in Obergefell and v. Hodges,
Yep.
They made the same argumentation. They used the precedent in Loving versus Virginia to say people have the right to get married. So in the same way where you said it didn't matter what the races of the two people getting married was, the gender of those two people getting married shouldn't matter either.
Yeah.
At which point it says that a same-sex marriage should be recognized in every state. But I think that's kind of like backslid, because I can't remember if it was Alabama or Mississippi. It was like said that they were not going to recognize same-sex couples, but I don't think anybody sued them yet or gotten far enough into the appellate process to essentially establish that that's going to happen, or to challenge, or I guess to like overrule or sustain that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just really interesting, and it wasn't like listening to Richard Loving. Apparently was not a very outspoken person. His wife is more of the one that was the outspoken one of the two. And he essentially said something to the regard of like, this is my wife, I love my wife, like, why do you have a problem that I love my wife? Like,
yeah.
what's your problem? I mean, like, we don't have a problem, what's yours?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, I don't know, didn't really want to, I see a lot of parallels between the civil rights movement of the late 60s, similar to kind of what there's been a lot of animosity this Pride Month, where a lot of people, because they disagree with somebody else's belief system, that's, I guess, a minority belief, it's not the majority belief. I mean, if you were to poll people, I guess you're right.
I guess I would say it's not I wouldn't say necessarily the majority belief. I would say it's not what the majority of people identify as,
or what the practice of the majority is.
Yeah, that would probably be a better way to say it.
I see a lot of parallels, right? And like people during this time period, like where, Mildred talked about like people put like a burning cross in their yard and like tried to intimidate them, and there's stuff like that going on today. And so it's kind of one of those like, hey, history's repeating itself. Like we have a group of people who've gained more social and political agency, and because they're gaining agency and are being allowed to, or having the opportunities to speak, people who disagree with them are trying to aggressively shut them down. And it's one of those things that it's like, well, we've got to, I don't know, it's kind of one of those, we need to be progressive in the sense of like, just because it's never been done before, I mean, and I'm not trying to open Pandora's box. I think that's where people are like, well, we let this, some people trying to argue it's slippery slope, but I don't know. Just to me, there's a lot of parallels to this where people are like, we just want to be treated equitably, and there's states that are actively trying to take away the rights of these people, whether it's Texas or Idaho, and so like, does the, and even with, well, it's a whole other ball of wax. Like, we're so divided right now that the protections that you have in one state are vastly different than you have in another. And some would say that's the beauty of federalism. But
I think the biggest thing that we need to focus on is that we need to take care of each other. I think at the end of the day, right, if I think differently than you, that's okay, right? It can strengthen our country, differences, and looking at that kind of stuff. But when we try and hold somebody down because they don't think like us, it becomes it becomes a divisive and dangerous thing. And again, not opening Pandora's box, because again, a lot of people think there's a slippery slope there. But what I would stress is that if you're going to argue this, please don't argue religion, because again, government and religion do not mix. It's in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. It's why I pointed out that comment that was written in the original, or written in the response to their motion for appeal. So again, if you're going to argue this, that's fine. But please do not choose to put religion in there. Okay. So that, I think, kind of take care of each other. That was the whole point. I think the biggest thing you can get from Loving versus Virginia is that when people love each other, let them take care of each other, and try and take care of them. So, Mark,
yeah.
DBJ.
And I think we just need to have a little bit more humility in our lives, where just because your neighbor doesn't do what you do the way that you do it doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you can't, doesn't mean that you have to doesn't invalidate the way you live if they don't live the way that you live. It doesn't mean you have to live the way that they live. Kind of a live and let live mentality. I don't know, man. It goes back to the whole DBJ.
DBJ, man.
Don't be a jerk.
All right, guys. Well, Bark, anything else?
Have a great summer, everybody.
Yeah, enjoy your guys. Yourselves, and I'm getting married in freaking, no, I'm not even gonna call it 9 days, because this is gonna post on Friday. I'm getting married in 8 days. Can't wait. Love of my life. She's amazing. So I'll be excited. So next time you guys see me on Turnbark Time, I'll have a rock on my hand. And by rock, I mean just a band, because I don't wear a rock. But anyway, so that was my right hand, by the way. So let me go ahead and just tap my left hand. It'll be on this one. So
it's good that you know directions.
Yeah, every now and then I have to hold up the L's to make sure I get it right. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, if there's nothing more, please send us your ideas, anything like that. I know Barker and I have a couple written down to start off season 4. Bark, who'd have thunk that we would have 3 seasons now under our belts?
I don't know, man. It keeps rolling. I mean, we can't let it go the way of the snow cone.
Dude, okay, easy, Trigger. I'll find the snow cone machine. God.
Oh, one last thing.
Yeah.
A shout out to one of my AP World kids, Avery Moon, who not only has a Barkerism shirt, made an original Barkerism shirt, made a trivia for me the other day. I was doing trivia at the end of the year. She made one, and a whole category was dedicated to Turnbark Time questions.
Wow.
Because she was like, I was busy doing work around the house the other day, and I listened to like 3 hours of Turnbark Time.
How'd you do?
So I think I missed 2, and I was really mad.
I bet you
like
were.
a lot of them were like, what episode, what was the topic, or this was the topic, what episode was it?
Oh, that's tough.
And then the other one, it was from our last episode. It was from the Q&A episode, and it was, what was the last question we answered? And I remembered the 2 other questions that we didn't answer, but I couldn't remember what the third one was. Oh, so Moonbeam, there's your shout out. Hey, you had to listen all the way to the end of the episode, but if you did, there's your shout out.
Have fun doing your chores.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next season, which will be dropping sometime fall-ish, Barker football pending.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Hey, good luck to them. Jacks over there at RA Long. Have a great summer, Jacks of Quincy. Have a great summer, Jacks of RA Long. We miss you guys, but remember, we can't miss you if you don't leave. So, until next time, I'm the Turn.
I'm the Bark.
And we're going to be here a long time. At least 4 seasons.
Be safe, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Be safe.
And be well. Have a great summer.